Welcome to All About the Experiences. Today marks my 28th episode, and I am truly continually blessed with the amazing individuals that have come to share their journey and their experiences with not just me, but with everyone. And today is no different. Our guest today has had a profound journey that had him on a 25-year hiatus. But trust me, he was not dormant during that time. He will share with us how he worked on improving his life for reentry back into society, and that started just less than 5 years ago. He is a founding member of the Shakespeare Behind Bars, and he strives to take his experiences and insight into criminal justice, personal accountability, and overcoming personal obstacles as he created a career as a motivational speaker and life mentor. One of his quotes that he finds most purposeful and at the foundation of his journey is, "A lie has speed, but the truth has endurance." Without further delay, I welcome Ronald Anthony Brown Jr., better known as Ron, to All About the Experiences podcast. Welcome, Ron. Thank you so much for coming and blessing our platform today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. This is definitely a surreal honor for me, just getting an opportunity, especially in light of everything that has been going on in the world, to really kind of speak about my experience, because it's actually my experience probably helped me over the last year with a lot of things that everybody has been dealing with. So my experience is something that gives me the ability to impart my experience on people and hopefully give them kind of a pathway to realizing more about themselves and more about that they are strong enough to kind of get through whatever it is they're faced with.
Well, I always love to share with the viewers and the listeners how I know someone. And I have been very fortunate to know a great deal of folks in your family. First off, I had your son-in-law, Dale Robinson, on,
Yeah.
and he shared his story, which you guys have some similarities there with your story, which we'll get into.
Yes.
And then also your beautiful daughter, I don't even say stepdaughter, your bonus daughter, your daughter, and she came on and she shared her journey and how she's an author and a new mom and supporting her business and the love of her life. And then now I have her dad on here, and I can't wait to get into your journey. I think I started off with saying, even before we came on, is that I love to have an organic conversation because I'm learning in this process as well. And one of the things that I can say, you know how they say the apples don't fall far from the tree, or the people that you surround yourself with. There's something to be said about that great energy that comes from that. And I see that from your family as a whole. And I got to give a shout out to your wife as well, because of her reaching out and really touching base and saying, hey, my husband has a story. I'm a wife, I'm an advocate. And that's the way the foundation of a family, of a marriage, all of those things come together. So kudos to you and your beautiful family, number one. And I'm so thankful to know each and every one of you. So just had to throw that out there.
Hey, well, I mean, truly blessed in that respect. My wife, she actually stays on me to stay focused on the plan, as it were.
There
And
you go.
she's like, well, I contacted the woman that did the podcast with Taylor, and I was like, you did, okay. And it's like, well, I'm sending you an email with the information, and the thing about my wife, I mean, I've known my wife for like 30 years, and we were
Wow.
friends for so many years. And for me, with her and my two bonus daughters, as you would call it, I like that,
Yes.
Tiffany and Taylor. So I knew them when they were really, really young, and
Okay.
they spent a lot of time with me. Uh, in the midst of me beginning my time, uh, I didn't know whether I was going to see the end of that time or not. I was
Mhm.
young. I didn't understand that they were like a life preserver that kind of kept me afloat at that particular time. So for me, when I get out later on and I see them, when I see all of our daughters, between us we have three daughters. So when I look at all of them, Taylor and Janae will be 30 this year, and Tiffany, she's 32. But I'm amazed at the strength and the talent and the perseverance that all of them have. And then I look at my wife and I realize Tiffany and Taylor, where they get that from. And so for me, it was something that she poured into me. It's something that kept me going. It's something that every book that I read, every time that I got into a particular program, or every time I spent time trying to examine myself,
Right.
those were, the elements of what that was about, because nobody is an island. And so we can tell ourselves we do it by ourselves, and we got it out the mud, as the kids call it now.
Right.
But the reality of it is, we don't get it out of the mud because we came from the mud. We rise up from the mud, because reality is, mud is not just a throwaway. The mud is the essence of everything. And
Absolutely.
we're living in that relative world. We don't understand happiness without sadness, pleasure without pain, all of those things. And in order to really enjoy those things, we have to be willing to open ourselves up to encompass all of it and accept all of it. When they say you got to accept the bad with the good,
Yes.
you learn how to accept the bad with the good. Then what happens is, when the good comes, you appreciate even more.
Absolutely. No truer words have been spoken. Well, let's give the listeners and the viewers a little background. And I mean, we all have established you have a beautiful family. There's no doubt about that. And they have been, obviously, like you said, life preservers for you. But let's start about your journey. Tell us about where you were during that time when you were away from your family.
Um, I mean, I got locked up at 19. I was a college student, you know, um, and I had been in at a particular time. I've been in relationships that I wasn't really ready for. It was kind of like, when you get to that point in your life. I believe that everybody in prison is in prison for something that is related to one thing, and that's esteem. Every single crime that you can think of is related to esteem, how we feel about ourselves.
Mm.
And for me, I didn't feel very good about myself, and I found myself with a life sentence. I had 25 years to the board. And even then, it wasn't a guarantee that you were going to get out if you made it to the board, if you survived that long.
Mm.
So, at the time, 1991, you're like thinking about, oh man, 2016. And it was a term they used to use. They used to say, oh man, when you see the pro board, I see it at Buck Rogers. And that was an old show that was so far in the future. Like, you thought that when you seen the pro board, they were going to have flying cars and
Like
all
the
of these things.
Jetsons.
Yeah. So it was just really hard at 19 to wrap my mind around all of that. I wasn't prepared for that. Um, and I was in denial for the first few years of my incarceration. I was not acknowledging my responsibility, my guilt about the situation. My victim in my case was a Caucasian person, and so I was so into being into this victimhood of, man, they trying to give me this kind of time, because I had never been in trouble before. And people was like, man, well, you wouldn't get that kind of time if you had a black victim or anything like that. And I realized at some point that was just a whole lot of noise, a lot of noise, because the reality of it is if I don't do what I did and make the choices I made, I don't even like the term mistake. Mistake is I turned left up here on the road when I should have turned right, and it put me on the wrong path, and I wasn't listening to the GPS. That's a mistake. I made bad choices. I made choices that affected people in a negative way. My family, his family, and even the people that I didn't even know that would hear about the case. When you hear about, a situation where somebody is harmed or anything like that, that affects people. And so I had too much I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And so as time went on, I ended up getting involved in a program in 1995 called Shakespeare Behind Bars, which before that it was Books Behind Bars, where you work with middle school kids, and usually they would come in over the course of the school year 6 or 7 times, and we would read different literature, The Outsiders, Romeo and Juliet, which is what spawned this. And so one of the leaders in the institution where I was at, she was a psychologist. She decided she had a friend that was the head of Kentucky Shakespeare Festival, and he would come in and work with us. And he was been in acting, producing, directing for 30 years.
Okay.
He came in and worked with us, and he said he would keep coming until we were wasting his time. That never happened. Shakespeare Behind Bars at this particular time has still been going. It just had its 25th year anniversary.
Wow.
There was a documentary that was awarded at Sundance Film Festival in about 2004, 2005. It was filmed in 2003.
Okay.
You play these characters, and it gave me an opportunity to examine myself. It gave me an opportunity to look at various different aspects of myself from the different characters you play, because you play females as well, which is what was initially what they did in Shakespeare's time.
Right.
Men played the female roles. And
Let me ask you, with that being in prison, and I know that there's kind of this, I'm generalizing right now, so excuse me for this, but there's this prowess, this male prowess or machismo kind of, thing. So how was that when here it is, you're behind bars, you're inundating yourself into Shakespeare of all things, which is incredible, but having all of these gentlemen that are involved in the program, but knowing that they had to play female roles, how was that received and accepted?
it's interesting because watching the whole arc of how that took place, it's kind of like anything else in life. I realize that now. At the particular time, it was kind of like you're in this environment that's like uber masculine.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody is always trying to make sure that you don't think somebody's some punk or something like that. But what I found is that initially people were challenging that. They would laugh about it. Somebody would come out on stage in a dress. I mean, even things such as shaving off your mustache was something that is met with all kinds of derision in prison.
Wow.
So now what you have to do in order for you to do that, you have to go inside yourself, know who you are, which is more about what the program's about.
Self-discovery.
It forces you to say, okay, I'm doing this. And if you're going to do it, you have to find the right reasons to do it. Nobody's going to do that without a purpose, because what you realize is that a lot of people, for the first time in their life, start doing something for reasons other than what everybody else is thinking about them. And initially, you have people come out at the first part of the play, and when they come out on stage in a dress or whatever, people were laughing and everything like it. But the challenge was to stay in character. The whole goal, with Kurt was always to say, tell the truth. That was a lot of tell the truth. When you tell the story, tell the truth to the story and be true to the character. And I was under the impression when I first got into acting that acting was just lying. And I realized pretty early on that acting has nothing to do with lying. It has everything to do with being truthful and being honest about who you are in that moment, what the message is you're trying to convey. And what you learn in that process. You learn how to dissect a character, but in the process of dissecting the character, you're actually dissecting yourself. In the process of doing a scene on stage, a play can only be as good as its most uncommitted actor,
Hmm.
right? So
Absolutely.
you can be Denzel Washington all day long, right? But if the person that's across from you is not committed, not focused, and you're not connected in the scene, it doesn't matter. And so you
Absolutely.
have to learn how to communicate. You have to learn how to listen and how to receive information as well as give out information, and understand that there are certain things that are verbal, certain things that are nonverbal. And in the process, starting with Romeo and Juliet, and I played several different characters from Romeo to Macbeth, and it was interesting being an individual that has caused harm to somebody and playing like Cassius in Julius Caesar, who's plotting helping to plot the murder of Julius Caesar,
Right.
and what that feels like, and me and Macbeth, and watching him go crazy, uh, experiencing that, and watching other people work through characters. It taught me a lot about the human condition. It taught me a lot about how is it that I'm communicating, and even the crowds. After a while, we did it for so long, and we were so committed to it that the people that became regular viewers on the yard that would come to see the plays, they would get to the point where they would start checking people in the crowd. How about shut up with all that laugh and everything,
They're
And
connecting to it. They're
uh,
connecting.
yeah, so it was interesting, but it's just like anything else. A lot of times people are just challenging you to see if you really believe in what it is that you're doing. And sometimes people will do things to kind of see if you really committed to it. And that happens in life too. And if you're easily if you're easily pulled off out of character, pulled off your square by somebody laughing or somebody making a comment, then maybe you're not as committed as you need to be.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I've learned that. I think even more so since I started this platform, and realizing that maybe I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. But I know my purpose, and I'm driven by that purpose. And if it's not for you, then it's not for you. You have the option to tune in or tune out. But one of the things that kind of resonates to me in all that you're saying is how you were able to connect this path that got you to where you are behind bars and work through that through this method. Would you consider that the method acting and understanding more, of yourself? Let me ask you with that, because I mean, Shakespeare is, I mean, the reason why we all are still seeing films and plays and things that continue to recreate what we've seen in plays like Macbeth. How has that been a catalyst in the sense to your new work when you're out and you're mentoring people and serving as a life coach and a motivational speaker? Do you kind of pull from that time in front of people on stage and give more of yourself that way?
Um, I think it's all connected to a certain extent. It's not any one way that is connected, because I tend to look at every situation kind of like people. Some people are similar and everything, but everybody is unique in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is if you when you're preparing for a scene, even if you've done this play, any particular year, we might do a play anywhere between 6 and 12 times.
Okay.
No matter how many times you do it, right? You can't have a preconceived notion about what you're going to do. Every single time you go out there, it's a different situation. So what has been challenging for me is the realization that sometimes life is about discovery, right? And so it means just because you know what somebody is going to say doesn't mean that you don't listen to them. Because the way that they say something can change the whole meaning of what it is that's being said. Shakespeare Behind Bars, Shakespeare was a great writer, but Shakespeare Behind Bars and the plays don't mean anything without the experience of the people that are performing the plays.
Mm.
The the plays are the vehicle, but the experience of the human beings that are playing the roles are the battery that make it go.
Gotcha.
And so without that, so we have a situation where we were in prison, and so now different than what you have in some of these Shakespeare in the Park situations, or even Balboa Park, because I do Zoom calls and recordings with them all the time, and they're great. Matter of fact, I was in San Diego a couple of years ago, and
Awesome.
it was for me the realization that when you're performing these plays, they're different. It's when you memorize the lines, that's one thing, but when you start to embody the lines, and so you have a play that is being performed by people in prison. So you got people that are murderers that are playing murder victims.
Mm.
You got people that have been convicted of rape that are playing rape victims. Um, and you have men that have been disrespectful or dismissive of women playing female roles and performing these roles and embodying these roles in a way that helps them know what it's like to be on the other end of that disrespect. And
Absolutely.
so it shifts. If you can create a shift in people's consciousness and their perspective, there's nothing that you can't change, because you can have whatever programs that you want to have. I don't care how much money you put into it, how much R&D is in it. If you don't create a shift in a person's perspective, then nothing changes with that. But if you do create that, even in prison, even in an environment that is designed to chew people up and spit people out, if you change your perception of yourself and your perspective of your future, your life, and your present, then there's nothing that you can't do. There's nothing that you can't achieve. And you don't have to have somebody else co-sign for that. You don't need anybody else to say, yeah, you can do it, because you've shifted that. And so for me, every play was meaningful. Every line was powerful. Some lines stand out more than others. But when you're performing and you know what the person is going to say, it's like listening to them say their lines. When they say their lines and you're listening to them, you've heard them 100 times because you've been in practice.
Right.
But when you hear them, it's like it takes on a whole different meaning. And every single person has those experiences. So when you're watching a Shakespeare Behind Bars play, you're watching several different people at one time shift a way of looking at the world, shift the way that they see themselves. And these people, that's the reason Shakespeare Behind Bars recidivism rate is so much lower than the average rate here in Kentucky or even nationally. It's because these people have changed how they see themselves.
Wow. That's profound. It's absolutely profound. And even when I'm listening to you say this, and it's amazing, because I'm not an actress. I've never, I mean, I've acted in a play before, but you hit the nail on the head. You do have to, it's all in the delivery, and it's all in, you can hear that same line, but when you're there and you get the energy from those that are watching you in your audience, but then also when you're connecting to that character and coming through, that is amazing and profound. It truly is.
But all the
Wow.
world's a stage. All the world's a stage, Cheryl. And when you say I'm not an actress, no, you're not an actress. You're a human being. That's the thing. When you look at when it says all the world's a stage, that's what it says in Shakespeare, right? All the world's a stage, and we're performers. That's what we do. We every single day that we get up, like today, I'm not feeling good. I feel like I want to lay in bed all day, you know. But guess what? I gotta get up.
Gotta get
So
up.
get up and I go do what I gotta do. I don't feel like smiling today, but guess what? I'm gonna smile today because I choose to pour into the world something different.
Mm.
Uh, that's everybody is playing a role. You get to choose whether you want to be the hero or the villain in somebody's story. And so when you get to the point where you realize that you do have that kind of power, no matter how subtle it may be, when you realize that you do have that kind of effect on people, then you realize how important it is for you to manage that in the most effective way. And
Mm-hmm.
so what you're doing, like just something as simple as all about the experiences, right? What that means, what that's basically saying is everybody counts. Everybody,
Everyone counts. Absolutely.
and that's that small shift. Maybe somebody can't understand that right now, but you plant that seed. And so when you have that and you start out small and you're committed to it. So like when you say maybe I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Well, maybe you're not because guess what? Some people are not advanced enough to drink that tea, right? Some people are still on Infamil, Similac, and things of that nature because they're not at the point of taking responsibility for their own trajectory. And
Gotcha.
that's fine. And it's not a bad thing because guess what? At one point in time, we were there. At one
For
point in
sure.
time, at one point in time, we were wearing diapers and we finally got potty trained.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of shifting our perspective because in some way, shape, or form, we're all going through some type of emotional and mental PTSD. Trauma exists everywhere, and we can look for everybody to diagnose it for us or whatever, and we can get stuck in that diagnosis, or we can say some we've heard a million times. Either you're gonna be part of the problem or you're gonna be part of the solution.
Solution.
You know,
Gotcha.
and so what we're doing is a solution.
Wow. Let me ask you, the people that you mentor and the people that when you're before a group or one person and you're talking about your experience and there's some people, and I know because I've shared my experiences, some people, like you said, are receptive to it and maybe they're not because they're not ready. Your end goal is to, and I'm asking a question here. I should rephrase this. Is your end goal to keep them from going down the same path that you have, or to bring awareness to them?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think, like, and for clarification, I mentor different people. I've spoken in front of several different groups, but it's still something that I'm trying to really get off the ground. I spend my time, I do 9 to 5 jobs and everything like that. Uh, and COVID kind of threw a monkey wrench in a lot of different things.
For sure.
I'm not, for me, it's not about a career choice, it's
Okay.
about who I am. And so mentoring and sharing my experience has very little to do with career choices or things of that nature. I would love to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm doing, and I can go from here to there and affect that. I would love to be able to have fund a big, huge program and save as many people as I could. But for me, I believe that, for lack of a better word, the constituency that you're dealing with is everybody you come in contact with. Every single person that you see has something to teach you.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure.
Sometimes it's to teach you what not to do, and sometimes it's to teach you what to do. When I look at, Taylor and Dale, you know, they're amazing people,
Yeah.
and you watch that, they inspire me, you know, and I got to spend time. Me and my wife, we got to babysit granddaughter yesterday. She turns
Yes.
1, and when I watch her though, I'm in awe of the fact that we all at one point in time was this this little child that didn't have a way of understanding everything that was going on, but we were fearless, right? We were fearless.
Yes.
We were wanting to examine this and examine that, and we didn't have all of these things. We didn't sit on one side of the living room and be like, man, I'm not going way over there because it's pointless for me to go over there. That's what happens when you grow up and you've had doors slammed in your face and everything. You start to get discouraged. And so now all you want to do is just lay on your crib. Babies they don't do that. They're like, I got to figure out what's going on here. And they let you know, and they're honest, and they have a way of communicating with you. And it's not about whether they're communicating with you or not, because they are communicating with you. The question is, do you understand what they're communicating to you? And that's the same way. I could speak to you on any platform or speak to you face to face. If I'm speaking to you in French and you don't speak French, it doesn't matter how many times I say it, how loud I say it, or what emphasis I say it with. If you don't understand what I'm saying, I'm not communicating. All I'm doing is talking. And so what I see is every single day, people will confide in you. They will say certain things. They may not ask you directly. When I made parole in 2016, I made parole on February 9th and couldn't leave till April 1st. And so I was going to be there for 2 months with several people. And I couldn't tell you how many times people would pull me to the side and be like, man, do you got any advice for me on how I can do this? You know, I still got 12 more years to go to see the parole board, or 15 years to serve out. How did you do it? You know, and the only thing I can tell people is what I told them then is what I tell people out here on the streets, is that ultimately it has to start with figuring out who you are, not who you've been told you are, not what you've been lied to about, or, you know, whatever issues, because we all got these different things in our past and they shape how we see ourselves. But figuring out who you are, and sometimes that's a hard thing, because a lot of times in order to examine who we are, we have to take ownership of some of the things that we've done that we feel ashamed about. I read a lot of books and I've come to grips with things that guys don't talk about. Women can talk about certain things, like women can talk to their girlfriend, like, yeah, I feel lonely, you know, or whatever. But guys, we don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Be like, you know, man, you know, I'm feeling lonely, brother. You know, it just doesn't, we don't do that. So it's like we do it, but we don't use that type of language. And I think I had to learn like the difference between guilt and shame. You know, I started reading a woman, Brene Brown. She's talking about that guilt is I did something bad. Shame is I am something bad. And a lot of times people is like, oh, especially Black community, we're really kind of like really reticent to kind of be open to different views on certain things, because we've been locked into it, and our grandmother told us, you know, this is the simple way that it is, or whatever. And that's what they're telling us. But the thing about it is at some point we got to expand our horizons, you know. And it made me think about like Eric Thomas. Eric Thomas is number one motivational speaker. But he's like, he went to Michigan State because he had to learn how white America speaks, corporate America speaks. He couldn't go into motivational speaking and talk about ambulance.
No.
He's like, it doesn't work. So you got to learn how to communicate. So if you want to affect the greatest number of people, you got to figure out ways to connect with the greatest number of people. And so for me, it's not about saving them, although I do, like with my grandson, him being 15, I am real clear about, you're 4 years younger than I was when I went to prison. And I'm like, I'm not trying to win a popularity contest. I will do whatever it takes to make sure that you don't end up making the same mistakes I made. And so I think about that. but sometimes you just got to share with people and allow them to fashion their own journey and allow them to fashion their own experience.
So true. Let me ask you, since you've been out, and obviously we've all faced challenges, and we know this in the last year. And I always say this: this pandemic, it has kind of evened the playing field as far as the things that we've all experienced collectively. But, and I even shared this with Dale. I'm like, I know that you had a lot of closed doors in your face because of you coming out of prison, and people have this stigma that whatever brought you in or took you into prison, that you're still bringing out with you. How have you overcome those kinds of stigmas, and how do you deal when people are not receptive?
You know, here's the funny thing. The funny thing is, I haven't really dealt with that in the same way that some people may have. Like I've never not gotten a job because of my past.
Okay.
Um, and in my own personal experience, you know, being African American obviously is something that is kind of being kind of at the forefront a little bit. But you're always aware of that, even before you get locked
Well, you
up.
know what that is when you don't even have to open your mouth and you can see it. I always say that. One of the things is every day I wake up, I know that I'm Black and I'm a woman.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
Facts.
and I tend, you know, I grew up with a lot of strong women and everything. And I had my grandfather. My grandfather, he's he's probably the closest thing to a father that I had, you know. And I have a relationship with my father now, you know, we kind of working on that. But my grandfather in raising me, and he passed away in 2017. So for me, that's the biggest challenge is like, you know, not having my grandfather to kind of explain certain things to me because he would explain to me what it was like being like the first Black postmaster in St. Matthews area here in Louisville, right? And the names that he would get called or the, you know, the threats and stuff like that. And his realization that, hey, you know, I'm not gonna quit my job. You know, I got a wife, I got 5 kids at home.
Right.
And in the challenges of what it is to be Black. And so those things I've always been aware of. Those things are always at the forefront. Myself, I've probably limited myself more than anybody has ever limited me. I've probably refused or been too scared to knock on doors, probably more doors than I've actually had shut in my face.
Gotcha.
Because I've also found that sometimes when you take a chance, when it doesn't make sense to you, uh, your horizons are open to certain things. For instance, being a young African American in prison with a life sentence, deciding to do Shakespeare. That is completely off, you know, any plans that I thought I might have been gonna have or whatever. And I'm like, and I'm out here and I'm performing these roles. I'm even performing uh, where I was when I played a female. I played 2 females in the same play, matter of fact. And and ironically, my favorite female character I never got to play because we never did that play. And I had already decided I was going to do that because before I was ever in prison, I saw Taming of the Shrew. And
Okay.
Kate in Taming of the Shrew is like my favorite Shakespeare character. She she's a strong woman. That's what I was raised around. That's what I find uh, inspiring and attractive about life, and that's the strength about the world. You know, ironically, you know, we live with our political situation being what it is. It's neither here nor there, but I think it's a matter of women have for far too long been undervalued and underappreciated. And I don't think that it means that men have to take a step back to acknowledge that. I think that's a matter of saying, listen, women, you need to come up here with us as opposed to taking steps back. You know what I'm saying? hold your hand out and welcome them forward. And I think that makes everything better. So I just,
Say that again.
you know,
Yeah.
I just think it's oftentimes we feel like in order to acknowledge somebody, we have to devalue ourselves,
Right.
right? Or we have to, in order to give you the rights that you deserve and the respect you deserve, that means that we're somehow giving up some of our own rights and some of our own respect. And that's not the case. They're not, it's not mutually exclusive. And
Right.
I just think that we have got to that point now where we're not even listening to anybody. We're not listening to each other. We're just waiting for you to finish because I've already established that you're either a Democrat or Republican, conservative, liberal. Uh, at the end of the day, we're about human beings. And, the COVID thing, that's been easy for me to deal with. I've been in places where I couldn't go very many places. I've been locked in before.
Right.
Uh, I think the hardest thing over the last year has been dealing with social justice for me.
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
and what that is, and the exposure of people that don't identify with that. And the fact that we as a community haven't done a very good job of communicating it either. And I think when you speak about it, and sometimes it's a process of being yelling for so long, our voice gets hoarse and everything, and so now we don't even use our voice anymore. We just start being destructive, and more times than ever, more destructive to ourselves. And on a macro level with our communities, and on a micro level with our own bodies, with drugs and alcohol and things of that nature. And so, I just think the biggest lesson for me when I got out was thinking that getting out was the finish line.
Hmm.
Getting out was not the finish line. That was really the
Like
starting
a new
blocks.
start to your new journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, and embrace the challenges, because I'm like, I made it through 25 years. I don't know how. What I do know is you tell the truth, you allow other people to share their truth. You leave a space for somebody to be different than you. Leave the opportunity for somebody to have a different opinion than you, and know that it doesn't take away from their humanity and what it is that they have to offer. Because some of my best friends, we disagree all the time, you know, but we
Right.
all have different strengths, and so that's what I think is really, really important. Is just if you are true to yourself, then there's a space for you. There's a place for you. There's a you belong where you're at, you know. And the thing about it is, we all belong where we're at because we make choices about where we're gonna go.
Mm.
If you wanna go down this road of anger, resentment, hatred, and things of that nature, wherever it leads you, that's where you belong. Until you change your mind and choose something different. Because I've had several people that have been friends of mine that we have worked out together that have swastikas on the tattooed on their stomach, which a lot of people don't realize. It's like, man, you immediately see that. What you don't realize is some of these people, especially like places like California or wherever, when you go into prison, sometimes these people don't have a choice. And so,
Mm.
instead of responding with judgment, understand what they were going through, understand where they were in their life, because every single person has a story. Everybody. And so when I see all about the experiences, it means that this podcast can go on into perpetuity because you will never ever run out of subject matter.
No.
You know?
And nor do I run out of amazing people that come on and share. And I'm, one of the things that one of my biggest critics as well as biggest supporters told me is like, I hope it's not going to be all sugar plums and fairies and fluff. And I'm just like, no. And that's not my life. That's not what my life is made up of. And I think I even started off with telling you it's being able to connect to people and being able to learn through their experience, their journey. And like you said, I think you start off with saying about your granddaughter, that discovery about pushing through and seeing something. And sometimes I may not have it in me to really say, oh, can I do this? But if I see you do it, and I'm like, it gives me that inclination, like, okay, maybe this is something that I can do. And that's my whole intent of this platform, is to be able to share those connections that I have with people that I know, people that I don't know, that I become. And I say, and my family always says this to me, no matter where I am, I never leave somewhere without a friend. And, that's important to me. It's those connections and those interactions with people, regardless of how extensive or brief, I walk away with being a better version of myself. And I learn more. I mean, I've had several people in my family that have been incarcerated. And whether I know how they got there or not, or if I believed whatever the story was, or knew their journey or their path there, I'm recognizing even more so now that judgment is not for me. My thing is, I can only be responsible for what I do. And in that, if I see you go through this path and you've served 25 years and you've come out and you're still giving of yourself in a way that you're helping others understand. I said during the podcast episode with Dale, it really was it was really important during that podcast. He said something that resonated to me that made me look at my dad a little bit different, who has had a similar path and journey as well. And it made me take a look inward at my own self and saying, whatever he went through is what he went through. If I want to continue and forge a relationship and make sure that we're solid in who we are as father and daughter, then that's where that is. The sins of his past has nothing to do with what's going on right now. Doesn't mean you forget about some of the things that you may have been implicated in some way, shape, or form, or how they may have affected the family. But I have to live in this moment, and I love my father, and it was really important for me to have forgiveness, and that goes both ways, because I'm certain that he didn't want to be judged by mistakes, that because I know my dad loves me. I knew both my parents love me, and even my bonus parents, and so I've been very fortunate in that respect. But much to what you're saying is when you're able to share your journey and your experiences, in much like when you're in character in the play, and makes me look, not only are you feeling something, but I'm feeling something. I'm taking that in and I'm able to look at it from a different perspective. And so for that reason, this platform has been so amazing for me and my own healing and my own journey of discovery. So, and you have also triggered that as well. And you guys are an amazing family. And I'm all too happy to have you on the platform. And you've been so candid. You told me from the start, when we started in talks via email and text, nothing is off limits. And you have been so transparent. And that means so much. It's not easy. It's not easy to kind of bare your soul and, put yourself out there, but it's for the greater good, and you're making a difference. I know it's made a difference in my life just in this last 45, 50 minutes that we've been talking, but even beyond that, for our viewers and listeners that are tuning in, and I'm certain that someone is seeing something of themselves through you and your story. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. It made me think, like, what is your favorite number?
7.
Okay. So July 7th of 2017, do you know exactly where you were and what you were doing?
No. I can't say that I do.
Do you remember what you were feeling that day? You know,
I can't say that I would know, but I know who I am as a person. I'm sure I was pushing
what,
through.
and I'm saying, I say that to say this. When we talk about like forgiveness and things of that nature,
Right.
um, what we are mad about or what we are hurt about, a lot of times those things don't even matter when the person is in front of us. When you have the opportunity and the person is in front of you, no matter what has happened, you have an opportunity to make it right. It may not change what happened, but more times than not, most of the things that we are frustrated about or what we feel is about things that sometimes we lose sight of. I'm not exactly sure why I was mad about this situation or mad about this situation. And we get so hung up on that. And, for me, like my youngest daughter, she was born after I got incarcerated. And I saw her last year for the first time since
Wow.
she was 16 months old. She came to my trial. She was 16 months old, and her mother brought her to the trial. Um, she's a criminal justice graduate from college and everything, and she's in graduate school now. And we've had a good relationship. We just hadn't seen each other. And when I look at her in my mind, I'm thinking, man, she's got to have some resentment or anger towards me or something like that. But every single time I see her, she wraps her arms around me. And when I hear her say, "I love you, Daddy," those are the most important thing. It's the most important role that I've ever played in my life. Um, and so when I think I can identify with your dad on that end, but also know there's a joy that comes with realizing that your daughter is so successful and so amazing, and realize that, man, it's not. Sometimes you think it's despite you, but the reality of it is you poured something into that. There's there's still a part of you, and a lot of times is what we don't realize is that they took the same parts that we had, and they made a better dish with it.
Wow.
They just they just made things a little bit better, and it makes you believe in yourself again
For sure.
because you spend most of your time thinking that you don't have it in you, but then when you see your child, it's like, man, that's how you get inspired by your kids and everything, and it's all goes full circle. And so that's why I do. That's why I do what I do, and eventually one of these days, I may be successful with this to the
I
point
think you
where
already are.
hopefully, and so I'm I'm open to speaking and things of that nature. And I'm looking forward to it. I enjoy it. There's nothing I'm more passionate about in sharing my experience. It's really not hard to talk about my experience because at this point in my life, telling the truth, there's something that fills my spirit with that. Um, I don't have the same pressure of trying to keep up with whatever lie I may have told or whatever I'm trying to hold back or whatever. I can just be
Right.
me, and that makes a difference. And I can't thank you enough for this because in these moments right here, I can't give back the things that I took from life. And so for me, these opportunities, every time I have an opportunity to do this or speak to people individually in a group or whatever, it's me continuing to kind of pay my debt to society, not for a crime. I feel like everybody has a responsibility. Um, everybody should be bringing something to the table to kind of help with the betterment of all of us. So that's what I feel confident about. This is what I do that I feel confident about and I feel good at. So
Well,
thank you so much.
thank you for that. I can't thank you enough for blessing us all. And I always like to give my guests an opportunity if they want to give a special thanks or a shout out to someone or any anybody that you want to have a special acknowledgement to, the platform is yours.
Well, thank you. I mean, I would say first and foremost would be my wife, Rachel. Uh, my wife has been my best friend for 30 years. We don't always see eye to eye because she's wrong more than I am. Okay, she's not really wrong more than me, but that's what I tell her. But it makes it easier for me to deal with a lot of things. There's so many people that have poured into my life, but I also want to thank my mother, because me and my mother, we haven't always seen eye to eye. But one thing about my mother, she never gave up. She never gives up. And that's one thing that I got from her. And it's something I carry with me and I hold on to, because no matter what's going on any given day, I'm going to keep getting up. I'm going to keep stepping forward, and I'm going to keep trying no matter how many times life knocks me down. And I'm thankful for that. So I appreciate the opportunity for this. And I'm just blessed with Tiffany, Taylor, Janae, the three girls. I love y'all. Y'all inspire me in different ways, but all just as powerful. And I just want to make everybody in my family proud, not in the loose sense of it, but in the most deeply rooted, truthful sense, being proud that I am an individual that believes what my grandfather believed, that honor is not a bad word. Having honor is not something that's bad, and it doesn't make you weak. So I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful for this opportunity, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate having you on, and definitely your journey is not, it hasn't, like you said, when you walked out of those doors, it was the beginning. And I thank you for your transparency and your willingness to share of yourself. And again, you are truly blessed. You have an amazing family. And I can see why they all want to circle around you and bask in what you're bringing. And so I appreciate you again coming on the platform. And I always tell people, I said, it's it's important for us to have some sort of impact, like much like what you were saying, and leave your mark on the world in some way. And we do that through, our experiences and our connections. And but it's also important for us to remember that human aspect as well. And today you reminded me of that even more so. So thank you. Before we close out, I always end with, we got to take care of each other, but more importantly, we must take care of ourselves. So with that being said, I hope you have an experiential rest of the week. And I look forward to having you back on the platform again, Ron. You have much more story to tell, that's for sure. And you always have a place here on All About the Experiences. So thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate you.